Hello and welcome to another edition of The Nation This Week. I'm Gerald Ratnam. Joining me in the studio this week is Dr. James Gomez, making he's a debutant on Bernama TV, but he's been around, Regional Director of Asia Center. We'll be talking about that very soon. And also usual suspect, Dr. Syarifah, Fatimah, Alzahrah, Al-Attas. Oh, that was a mouthful. But thank you very much for joining us. She's from IIUM. Most of us have seen her on TV before. Well, a lot to get into. Basically, what we do here is talk about, we try to recap the news of the week, but sometimes we recap stories that are trending or stories that we think are standing out during the week. So I'd like to begin with this. The Education Minister teared up while defending Palestine Solidarity Week, and we've got a clip. Let's take a look at this clip and we'll come back and comment on it. Yeah.
Nirmala kemanusiaan adalah asbab utama mengapa KPM mahu tampil dalam melaksanakan Minggu Solidariti ini. Anak-anak, yang berhormat, anak-anak yang didedahkan dengan 1001 emosi memerlukan panduan dan pedoman dalam menavigasi emosi ke arah yang lebih murni. Ini bukan soal siapa yang terpaling Palestin. Ini bukan soal siapa yang tunduk kepada desakan-desakan dangkal yang memilih antara dua kemanusiaan. Ini bukan soal itu. Justru itu, ahli yang berhormat, KPM menyahut seruan Yang Amat Berhormat Perdana Menteri dan pendirian Kerajaan Malaysia untuk turut bersama-sama mempertahankan hak dan kebebasan rakyat Palestin.
So given what was going on social media over the week, and I'm sure where you were, you're based in Bangkok and you also have an office in Johor now, you've been following what's happening on social media now. So she says, she defended the Palestine Solidarity Week in schools. She emphasized the event's focus on promoting humanity and peace. And Fadlina requested space for educational process without interference. I need to get to you with regard to that. And she stressed the importance of teaching humanitarian values and supporting Palestinians. Now, why did I pick this? Because it's just going to be threading into what you guys picked this week. So your thoughts on what's been happening and what she said in Parliament?
I think, of course, obviously it's very difficult what's happening in Palestine. And I think that sense of humanity is, I don't disagree, something we need to teach the children. I like that she highlighted that we need to help the children get through. I think it's an emotional experience for all of us, the amount of things that we've seen on social media, especially the horrific things that are happening. But I think we need to also be careful in terms of whether or not we have the teaching abilities to do that. Do we have teachers who are trained and know how to address issues of conflict, conversation?
Shouldn't teachers be trained? That's the next question. Now, critics are looking for clearer guidelines for the event due to concerns of the viral video clips, which people were talking about. From your perspective, what do you see? Because you cover a lot of what's happening in Asia or Asia and in ASEAN countries also.
Yeah, I think governments and ministries of education and teaching institutions are always looking to give holistic education to children. And I think, including humanitarian issues in civic education, I think it's a good idea. Whether it's done in Thailand or in Malaysia is great. But I guess the timing is what one can call into question here in Malaysia, especially given this issue in Palestine, Gaza. So I think that's the dilemma here. But I think the idea of having humanitarian issues as part of civic education is important, and I think if it's all around covering different kinds of humanitarian issues, we don't have to go far. Malaysia has also been a front runner in championing the rights of Rohingya within ASEAN, and I think that is also an issue that can be mainstream. We've spoken about other conflicts, climate crisis is also an issue, but when we speak about humanitarian issues, we also need to speak about rights. So these both go hand in hand: humanitarian issues and your rights under humanitarian crisis.
Yes, but I think we have to sort of remind ourselves that this shouldn't be like another subject, because I think we already have a lot of subjects for the children. It should be incorporated and embedded. So I think, preparation needs to happen before we sort of implement it in terms of training and also in terms of the content of what is being taught.
Right. From there, let's move to Dr. James's topic, civic education of international and humanitarian issues in school. I think this lends into what we're talking about right now. And why did you pick this topic?
Well, I picked it up simply to bounce off, what I've been reading in the news, because as soon as, accusations started to fly, why are we having this Solidarity Week in school? And then the counter argument was, we need to understand humanitarian issues. And I thought, hey, great, this is good. This is good, not just for Malaysia, Malaysian citizens as being member of ASEAN. That's good if they are competent. It makes them regional citizen, a global citizen, and so on. But what struck me really was, even coming to the studio here today, I was passing a school. I have not seen, in Southeast Asia, anywhere during a period of political or humanitarian crisis, banners go up on schools, supporting solidarity. That I thought was unusual. The only banners I've seen in my lifetime around schools and countries in Southeast Asia is about ASEAN. Let's join ASEAN Solidarity Week. I've not really seen a cause-based issues on school. So I thought that was, a little bit different here in Malaysia, just coming in a couple of days ago.
So the bigger question would be, how can we strike a balance between teaching humanitarian issues and avoiding potential bias or controversy in the classroom?
Oh, I think teachers must be trained. I mentioned this just now, but I think more so than anything, because the teachers are the ones that deliver the content to the children, they need to have good training in terms of recognizing their own biases, so that not to spread that. And then
but shouldn't this already be in the teaching curriculum of teachers training? Like, okay, you see something, you need to read the room before even.
It should be, but I don't think that is the case, and I don't think we're checking in terms of whether it's being implemented or not.
My views about teachers now in this moment in history with technology and all that, I think we cannot continue to make them subject matter experts. I think teachers should be trained as facilitators, coordinators. So the way I would see, whether it's in Malaysia or elsewhere, and let's say globally, let's not limit ourselves to Malaysia and Southeast Asia. I would say, instructors are these days facilitators, right? They are not keepers of knowledge, because who is an expert, right? The World Wide Web, gives us all kinds of information. So the way I would approach, the study or the socialization of humanitarian issues is to bring in subject matter specialists, people who are working in the area, and again, not to burden the students on an added curriculum, but just, have it as a guest talk, start of the semester.
Right.
You can have someone, working on climate justice or gender issues, online journalism, so many issues, right? But if you want to focus on humanitarian, then, perhaps let's start about what's about, happening to us in the region, and then maybe scope out to the global level.
And also get them to do things that are more active, so that they feel connected and they can be part of something that they do.
So looking for connection, making people want to feel connected, I think that's what's brought about this whole interest in the revival of the PLKN program, our national service. Now, you come from a country where national service is a big thing, so we're thinking of bringing it back, and there are mixed reviews with regards to bringing it back. Now, your thoughts on national service, coming from a country that takes national service very seriously?
Yeah, I think the government in Singapore and a lot of those who are aligned with that kind of national speak do defend the national service regime, but there are counter views. Some argue that the national service period in Singapore is too long, and the wage.
How many years is it now?
It can be between 2 to 2.5 years, depending on the rank and the level of education you get coming into the service, and then there's also reserve training up to 40 or 50, again depending on your rank. So those are issues. There are concerns around employers. I don't think in the Singapore case you will have public support to knock off national service, but some form of calibration, whether it's in terms of times, length of service, and possibly even reward. But I want to jump, away from Singapore and talk about Thailand, for
Right,
example.
yeah, exactly.
Thailand also has national service. They have a lottery system, you know, and the period is much shorter. Yeah, it could be 1 month, or you could even start serving it in installment while you are at university.
What's the lottery system?
The lottery system is, you know, when you choose to serve it, not in installments while you're at university, but you know, you graduate, in a whole chunk, right? Then, you know, you pick a lottery, and if you make it, if you get called out, then you do the service. If you don't get called out, you totally get scot-free.
Oh,
so you know, there are those that
will go.
Taking into account what he said, now let's talk about a little bit about the effectiveness. Now, what, as someone who's in tertiary education and who sees kids after tertiary education or before tertiary education get into a system like this, and we're looking at 45 days this time around, or at least that's what the plan is. What would you like to see in there?
I think we want to see more like holistic kind of experience, and I think a lot of values can also be incorporated. But I think what I like to see more, especially because sometimes we're quite divided, I want to see more, you know, kind of a harmonious and opportunity also for the young ones to get to know, you know, each other and to get to know.
Do you think it'll work? You know, this wanting to be together, this Ali Muthu Ramasamy effect. You know, when we put these kids together, we hope magically that what we saw in the 70s or envisioned in the 60s and 50s will all happen again. Do you think these things work?
Yeah, I think it's the modality of the pedagogy, right? So if you take a project-based approach, which is what I think we are talking about in terms of the socialization towards humanitarian issues, then I think you know, you throw up an issue and you get people working together, problem solving, and young people are young people. You know, they very quickly see past all the barriers and stereotypes. You know, they get on to the work, they have fun, and you know, working towards a good cause. That's my experience around the region. You know, so I can't see why it would be very different in Malaysia.
Right. I'm going to move to Dr. Fatimah's topic. So Fatimah, you picked employment in Malaysia, local versus foreigner, and youth employability.
Yes.
What's your story?
I wanted also to bring up, because we are all sort of, a lot of us, or many of us, have been talking about refugees and Palestinians, but I think we have to also talk about refugees here who are already in our country, right? Although we don't subscribe to allowing them to stay, or we don't have that, I think there's about 50,000 children under 18 in Malaysia. And so we have a lot of issues of cohesion in our society. And so if we don't let them go to school, well, they can go to school, but they'll have to pay. So a lot of them don't go to school because their parents can't go to work officially. So they go to work illegally. Their rights are not protected in terms of labor laws. So whether they get paid or don't get paid, they usually do the 4D jobs. And then the kids mostly don't go to school. So when they don't go to school, they don't learn a lot of things and they can't improve themselves. And a lot of them are here for many decades. So it's harder and harder for us to have a cohesive society, and we'll have more negative repercussions if we keep on doing that. So we must also recognize that, you know, even though we might not have signed up for it, we still need to think about, you know, 180,000 or so. I think as of August, we have about 180,000 registered with UNHCR refugees alone. Yeah.
And for me, right there is a local humanitarian issue, right? I think while we are kind of, you know, caught up with the news and the anxiety and pain that we receive looking at what's happening in Gaza, at the same time, I think, you know, we also have to pay attention to this. Just to build on what you said, you know, access to medicine, you know, prenatal, postnatal
We'll
care.
also bring that in, rights of children, especially of education for refugees. That's what we want to talk about too. I think this should come.
And also, you know, when you work in the non-formal sector, there are dangers with the workplace, and I think many of the refugees, when they work, they get injured, then they can't get proper medical help.
Right. I mean, I saw a video, I can't remember his name now, but he was talking about, you know, all of us fighting, you know, who are crying out for people to be saved in Palestine, so on and so forth. Someone said the other day in a video, and I saw it on Instagram, he says, we've got so many Palestinians here, what are we doing to make their lives a little better? And I think that lands into that conversation of us starting to actually think about what we want to do moving forward.
Yes, when we say humanitarian rights, we can talk about hate speech, that's been going around. How do we, how can kids be part of that conversation of correcting them? And how can we think about, inclusivity in that way also? So that's a really good starting point actually for teaching kids about humanitarian rights, because it's just here. It's just your neighbor next door, sometimes literally the same people living in your neighborhood.
Anything to add to that?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, use hate speech, and hate speech is often, a result of disinformation. And I think that's a big issue in Malaysia and the region and globally. So I think if we took sort of public education or literacy education, even informing young people or even older people for the fact about refugees, their rights, and how we should approach them. I think education is important. I know there are pockets of little charities and yayasan in very, very dire circumstances that try to provide some of this education. But I think if we had a more structured, a larger structure where we can actually roll out curriculum for
if you need to
children.
cough, you better cough.
But I think, there are a lot of good NGOs that are doing good work. But again, I think if we try to funnel all of the refugees to just go to NGOs, we're still dividing ourselves up, and we never get to know each other better, and the kids don't get to know each other better as well. So we're still sort of the others and us, or they and us.
Which brings about another question as to what we read in the media. And I want to add this, and I need to tell my producer this: media literacy. You were talking to me before we got in the air. A lot of what we do, a lot of decisions we make is made on the stuff we read, whether long form or just scroll through a feed. We're reading and we're gaining information. Now, media literacy is so important. We talk about fact checking, and apparently fact checking was so yesterday. Talk to us about media literacy and how we should look at it with regards to understanding this. So we talk about rights of children, especially education for refugees. Not many of us in Malaysia know, are there a set of people here that need this kind of help?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, we have to recognize disinformation is big. Disinformation is very big about refugees and the rights of children and all of that. And, we have been taking the fact-checking approach towards it. But because disinformation has become so rampant and viral and so huge, the tool of fact-checking is no longer adequate in dealing with and correcting those kind of misinformation. Add to the fact that a lot of fact-checking organizations are under-resourced or don't have resources anymore. So in the sort of media literacy thinking and disinformation thinking, we no longer see fact-checking as effective. So right now, where we stand, we feel media literacy is okay because all the fake news and other misinformation is already out there. So how do we navigate that? So this moment in history, this moment in the state of disinformation, media literacy is now seen as the tool for now. And I think that could be one way in which we deal with the misunderstanding around refugees in Malaysia and elsewhere.
I don't have the answer, but it's just like a question popped in my head thinking about, with AI and technology, is that going to be, is that something else that we need to think about in terms of what's going to be part of the conversation? Because I know that...
I think James has the answer.
I mean, here we have to go into future gazing, right? Everything is, in the future. Even the UN is thinking after the SDG goals to look at the future, right?
But future now comes more quickly than when we think about the last decade.
So close your eyes, audience, to picture this, the disinformation dystopia, where everything is machine generated, software generated. So the news that you see on, a visual screen, I don't think we'll have TVs, but we just have smart, monitors. Or a kind of a pad where we scroll news, ads outside, notices, these will all be machine generated, right? A lot of it
sounds
fake.
so much like the Matrix.
Yeah. So that's the future of disinformation. In that world, organic information will be sparse, genuine, and the resistance will be trying to protect organic information, and organic information will probably be worth its weight in gold. So that's the future we are heading to, you know, where all information is fake, false, and machine generated. And I think at that point, you know, we would have moved very far away from media literacy and looking at ethics. You know, what kind of world we want to live in, and ethics. And that's why when we talk about AI, it's all about ethics.
AI is all about
What
ethics.
is programmed, yeah.
So we've got one more topic which you picked out, Fatimah, care economy. And
Yes.
you know, I heard a lot about it. We have people who want to come here and talk a lot about the care economy. They mentioned it in the budget. So your take on the care economy?
Okay, thank you for letting me speak about care economy first. So I think I'm really excited to talk about it because we've seen it in the news a lot. But I think when we talk about the budget, we didn't see anything concrete about the care economy. So even though there was a lot of mention of it before the budget presentation, but when we look through the budgets, we can't see anything specifically
Which falls directly under care economy.
So I think that's one of the concerns that I have. So even if we're really serious about it and we don't allocate budget, are we really serious about it or not, right?
Yeah, so when we look at the region, what's the tone like in the region with regards to care economy?
Essentially, governments, you know, don't have budgets. That's the reality. So, and I think you were just alluding to that also in the Malaysian case. So I think the level of cognizance around care economy is not even there. You know, I think it will be driven by private sector need. Philanthropic need is also something that we can tap on, but requires a bit of a push. So I would say we are in a very, very nascent period when we talk about the care economy, and it requires a lot more articulation. Offhand, if you go to places like Thailand or Cambodia, that's not even figuring at the moment.
But there's a lot of opportunity here in terms of, you know, opening up employment options for young ones, you know, skills upgrading, and also it's also a business, right? So it will open up a lot of opportunities.
For me, with the care economy, I always look at people who are retiring. I look at myself. I've got 7 years left to be in the system, and then what do? I mean, if I have to work in a fast food joint, yes, I will. And I think continuing education is very important at this point. You know, just upskilling yourself at every level, 2-day course here, 3-day course there, 1-day course in learning how to do this, and that keeps that learning mode ongoing in one's head, which will help you survive once you pass 60. I don't know, and I think that's basically what we need to do right now. Put out enough training there for people to gain the skills they need to equip them when they retire, and I think that's also a big part of the care economy.
I just want to come in there because I think one thing we miss about the care economy, especially we are looking at, you know, senior citizen and beyond, right? There's so many things frail about that period in life. I think if we go into care economy without empathy, that is going to be a disaster. Because, you know, if I reflect on, I have an aged mother, and, you know, she's in need of care, right? And of course, we also try to access what's out there by the state and social services and all that. But it's rather robotic.
It is.
So it's it's a checkbox. You know, it's never about the counseling and the care. And you know, my mom would rather not access that care economy because
but I think the care economy should not just include paid care, but also considering people who do unpaid care. So we have maternity leaves, paternity leaves, but we should also consider having care leaves. So caring for children and elderly or people with disability or sick family members is a collective responsibility. So we can't make people think about it like I have to think about my own self and how care can be provided for me. We need to have empathy to think for everyone, you know, because we need care from, you know, from cradle to Great.
We've got 30 seconds left. How do you want to close this? Tell us a little bit about the Asia Center and what's it doing in Malaysia now.
Yeah, Asia Center is a regional think tank. We work a lot on social issues and the impact it has on citizens in the region. We are very pleased to announce that we are opening up an office in Johor Bahru at the south.
Congratulations. Yep. So if you want to know more about the Asia Center, just go Google it and get all the information you need about the Asia Center being opening up in Malaysia, more so in the south, 7 degrees north of the equator, which is in Johor Bahru. They're opening up there. Anything else to say before we close? I'm going to run the credits.
All right. Hopefully we get a ceasefire soon in Palestine.
Ceasefire, yeah. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend, and thank you very much for staying with us right here on Bernama TV. We've got news updates coming up very, very soon. I'm Gerald Ratnam, signing out.